Layers of Fear 2 is a hard game to talk about without spoilers, but I'm going to make the attempt because I really want my friend to play this game. Take your time, but give this one a go, Matt. All the footage I plan to use for this piece come from the first 2 acts of the game, and I'll try and leave as little context as possible if using footage from the second act. If what you see seems intriguing, then I'll say right now, for the right person, I think this game is great and well worth experiencing. I played the first game on PS4 some time ago, and I enjoyed it a lot, but this game certainly stands on its own, and for me, it stood out a little bit more. In this sequel, Bloober Team continues its tradition of doing what I always ask devs to do, and that's to give the audience some credit. Constantly, games are shoving their plot into your face and spoon-feeding you the story. No one's going to accuse Bloober Team of this. Their games are riddled with metaphors and references to other properties, and they require a little analysis to really truly enjoy. In one playthrough, it'll be hard to pick up on all the subtleties contained within the experience. I'm no rocket surgeon. I'm dumb as a rock. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So yeah, I didn't digest everything this game has to offer, but I found the story intriguing for all that I picked up on, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. As the game starts, you're walking down old-timey hallways on a sinking ship when you're revealed to be an actor as you take the stage. On the stage is a woman holding a young child.
Such a shame. You almost had it.
You wake up after that surreal experience on your bed, and a director speaks to you, and son of a bitch if that isn't my boy Candyman. That man's voice makes me feel uneasy and pregnant. This will start a loop of 5 separate acts. You enter your chambers, analyze any collectibles you found thus far, as they will spawn in this room, and you start a new film reel to commence a new act. I found immense satisfaction in checking on my collectibles, which includes slides for your projector, movie posters, phonograph interviews, and mysterious items. Your cabin is one of many beautifully adorned spaces in this game. The ship has that Titanic-inspired old ocean liner vibe, and I'm feeling it. It features a lot of early 1900s design that's like not only moody in the context of a horror game, but also just very much happens to be my taste. Lots of cool wallpaper and woodwork that's ornately detailed. I get it, you aren't buying the cabin, but you might as well appreciate it while you're here. After you put the first film reel in the projector, you start the first act. In the beginning, you'll stumble through hallways of the ship, finding scraps of articles of paper and assorted items with accompanying voice lines to add context. In the early game, you'll find pirate hats and children's toys detailing a young boy and girl playing pirates on the ship while hiding from authority figures. You'll also find notes from the chief security officer, and it becomes apparent that it's wise that they're hiding because he is none too fond of stowaways. Some might say overly fearful of these stowaways. You also find articles describing a movie being filmed on the ship and people describing the male lead. And although he's obviously a big deal, he doesn't seem well liked. There are hints that he's the tortured artist type. Now, in describing the gameplay, I'm going to reference a viewpoint that I've had in prior games of the adventure game / walking simulator genre. Several times I've complained about different developers being afraid of being labeled walking sims, so they try and add interactivity, and it's done to the game's detriment. The Wii's motion controls worked for games designed with that in mind. If you take a game that typically would have you reload with one button and now make it a waggle, this complication can make it more difficult, and even though it's technically more interactive than before, you've diminished the experience. Where I'm going with this, if you're going to do combat in a game, then make the combat good. No combat is better than bad combat. You want puzzles? Then make good puzzles. Otherwise, if your game is based around the story, then let the story speak for it. I feel this game in particular walks a fine balance. Most of the time, you're walking around admiring the environment, picking up items to flesh out the story. They also include a few puzzles, chase sequences, and they mess with the environment itself. You'll walk through a door to find yourself in a dead end, then do a 360 and find that dead end is opened up to another room. In one area, I was lost until I turned another way to reveal a passage that only appeared in moments of shadow. I'm one of like 5 people that enjoyed Bloober Team's game, The Blair Witch Project. Part of the reason I enjoyed that game was uncovering the main character's backstory, and another reason was the clever ways they use camcorders in the game. Layers of Fear 2 has the same kinds of moments that made me feel they were genuinely trying to be unique. Now, the chase sequences, on the other hand, I can imagine having dividing opinions on. There's an option for a safe mode where you can't die, but I played it on normal. I'm hit or miss on games with chase mechanics. What bothers me is when you have a very specific path to take and it becomes a trial and error mess that takes the moment to moment action from tense to annoying. The chase is only intimidating the first time, in my opinion. Having to redo segments like this is more frustrating than terrifying to me, but this one I never found myself frustrated by these, so I'll leave that to your discretion on your opinions of things. This game is filled with these terrifying looking mannequins to fill out the game in place of other characters. It works for the themes the game is going for, in my opinion. These mannequins also work because you don't need to do anything to make them intimidating. They also work as props to create a scene without having to have extensive narration to set up a moment. You see a mannequin slumped on the floor, you get the picture. A mannequin reaches to the sky, I get it. Another clever thing they do is have them moving in a more choppy frame rate than the rest of the game when they're in motion. I was a fan of this effect. When comparing this game as a horror game to its predecessor, I'd say that the first Layers of Fear game is a scarier game. This game, however, filled me with more dread. Dread for the characters and dread for me. It's extremely atmospheric. This is going to be more of an issue of taste, but my memories of the first game was one of more of a haunted house experiment. More jump scares and loud noises. Boo! This game is more subtle, and that includes the sound. Most of the music was very muted and ambient, but all of it was crispy as hell, and I liked it a lot. Also, I don't know if you heard, but they got the fucking Candyman on the voice cast. Yeah, points for me. I discussed my affection for the visuals in the cabin, but obviously that affection extends throughout the game. This moment on the pirate ship happens in Act 1. It's surreal, stylized, and just goddamn jaw-dropping. These scenes do not stop coming. Sometimes it'll be a black and white sequence that reminds me of Casablanca or some shit, and sometimes it's a theater with a mannequin audience where the lighting seems to have a red shade drawn over the light source. I grew up on Nintendo, so I'm pretty easily satisfied by the visual fidelity of most modern games, but goddamn, I think this game has some of the most visually appealing scenes in a game I've ever played. The game's linear and takes place in mostly tight corridors and repeated hallways, so certainly it isn't the most technically impressive games out there from that standpoint, but I'm just glad the Unreal Engine has gotten to the point where a focused and passionate smaller team can create something this stunning. Enough drooling. This game heavily references other media as well. There's a full-on 7 sequence that, well, hell, it's just 7. If you're a fan of that film, then you'll have to be incredibly thick to miss it. Even the achievement for completing that segment is called 7. Also included were references or homages to The Shining, The Wizard of Oz, A Trip to the Moon, a movie I had to look up the name of to write this. Google the movie with the moon face. That's what I did. And the post-game had another sequence that will remain unsullied. All these references were well executed and fit the themes of the story in the game. I'm a big fan. Throughout this journey, you'll hear lots of voice acting. We have our director and his sultry-ass voice dictating our proposed path, a separate narrator who also has an imposing and distinct voice, the 2 children, and a few supplemental characters who will remain nameless. All the voice acting was well done, suitable for the content. Especially the children voice actors impress me. Even though I'm a man with 2 kids, I'm also easily put off by children in movies and video games. They were believable, as that's my typical problem with these roles, and I rooted for them. At the end of each act is a branching choice. There's one decision that the director explicitly tells you to take, and another that you could choose to take to defy him. These decisions will alter the endings of the game, of which there are 3 total. Upon completion of the main story, you can replay any acts you want and alter those decisions or go back for any items you missed. This is a pretty painless process. I got what I would consider to be the good ending on my first run, and I was satisfied by the conclusion, but you should definitely try for at least 2 of these endings, as there is a supplemental scene that I found in New Game Plus. Act 2, wink wink, nudge nudge, say no more. Each new act I started thinking I was piecing together what was going on here, only to find that the next act brought new questions to come with what answers it carried. I've taken great pains to be as minimal with the story in my footage as possible to leave plenty to be experienced because I enjoyed this run. It took me all about 5 hours to finish my first playthrough, and it was time well spent. This is not a jump scare factory. The scares come from the atmosphere and the story. If you need that kind of Outlast type pump, then I think it might be a little too mellow for your blood. But if you like to explore changing environments while being directed by the fucking Candyman, yeah. You get to unfurl a story and feel like you're smart by deciphering the metaphors and finding environmental details. The entirety of the game is lovingly created with tons of detail, and to my eye, it was quite beautiful. If that sounds good to you, then give it a shot. It might be a while before my next one after this, as I plan on making a near replicant story recap and analysis, but that's going to be something for me. As you can tell, my video production quality still pretty low, but I'm trying my ass off for this one, as the Nier franchise is the reason I started making these videos as a practice run to learn how to pay respects to a couple of games that really made an impact on me. Thanks for any who came, and even more thanks to those who stayed.